Well, I've been in the field of marketing and branding for about 21 years now, 21 years. In all this while, a lot of changes have happened in these fields, much like they have in all other fields. And, the earlier panel touched upon that. So there's practically nothing that technology and the tidal wave of technology has not touched. So specific to marketing, it has brought us newer platforms, tools, techniques, analytical tools especially, and laid everything threadbare. I think that's the big change that it has brought in. For instance, some of the core ideals of a marketer. So, how do you convert fans of a brand into buying customers, into paying customers? How do you get them to put the buck on your brand? The corollary is also equally interesting. While this part, which I mentioned now, has been discussed enough, I don't find the corollary being discussed as much, which is how do you convert your customers into your fans? And that's a very interesting thing for a marketer to face. So in other words, how do you get your customers to root for your brand and to advocate the brand amongst others, become your brand advocate, and also to keep buying from your brand, your brand, which is becoming a repeat customer. So I, as a marketer, find this very interesting, and which is why I'm going to keep my ears attuned to the next panel. So our next session titled, How to Turn Fans into Customers and How Do You Turn Customers into Fans, is going to take a look at this issue. And it's going to tell us probably how marketers can achieve these goals, and what are the tools, techniques, and strategies they can use to achieve these goals that I laid out just now. So in this session, we have David Scott in conversation with Alap Ghosh. Hi, David. Hi, Alap.
And, hey, how's it going?
Wonderful, wonderful. It's a wonderful afternoon, wonderful evening in Bangalore where I sit. And welcome to both of you. Before handing this over to Alap, let me introduce him. Alap is a digital transformation specialist with over 21 years of experience. He's also a certified marketing trainer and an educator in digital marketing at top institutes, including the IIM Bangalore. Alap, over to you. Eagerly looking forward to an engrossing session.
Thank you so much. I'm not going to take the pains to introduce David Meerman Scott. David, after having read your book, there was some extremely elementary, like I literally had to go back to my own roots to try and look at what is it that I was doing. I'm going to take the liberty to take the most of the time we've got together and just jump right in. I hope that's okay with you.
Works for me, Alap. Thanks very much.
So straight into the material. So a little bit about Fanocracy. This is no discredit to Ganesh. I think my immediate response when I looked at the book was, it's going to teach me how I can make people buy more from me. And I don't think that's what the book is about at all. It's actually, I want you to tell us about the book in your own.
So what I noticed over the last about 10 years is that the online channel, the social media channels have become incredibly crowded. I've written a number of books about social media marketing and content marketing. So I'm kind of guilty for sharing all of these ideas with the world. My books are in 30 different languages. However, what I noticed is that too many people were abusing these channels, and they're sending yet another email, yet another LinkedIn message, another tweet, another video, not adding value. At the same time, the social networks like Facebook have been creating algorithms that are dangerous. They're dangerous because they're polarizing. So I was thinking to myself, my gosh, what does that mean? What's next in this world? And I started to talk with my daughter, Reiko. And Reiko is now 28 years old. I was talking to Reiko about how I'm such a massive fan of a band called the Grateful Dead. And in fact, I even have a logo of the Grateful Dead over my shoulder here in my studio. And then Reiko said, well, I'm a huge fan of Harry Potter. So we decided to collaborate and talk about the things that we get excited about, what we're a fan of. And then we went and interviewed hundreds of people about what they're a fan about. And then we talked with companies around the world who have created fans. And we spoke with neuroscientists to understand what's going on in our brains when we become a fan of something. So all of those things are elements of what ended up being a 5-year research project and turned into the book Fanocracy. And Fanocracy came out last year. It made the Wall Street Journal bestseller list. And it's, in my mind, a super interesting way to look at marketing, because it's, as you said earlier, it's not just about trying to get new customers. It's about how can you build a genuine connection, a genuine human connection with people, and have them be eager to want to do business with you.
Brilliant. I believe Reiko has a background in medicine.
Reiko is, while we were writing the book, she was going to medical school, and she did her undergraduate degree at Columbia University in neuroscience, and then medical school at Boston University. And she's currently working at Boston Medical Center as an emergency room doctor. So having her as my co-author, not only, of course, because she's my daughter, but also because she's a mixed race. My wife is Japanese, Reiko's mother, mixed race, millennial woman who loves Harry Potter and loves K-pop. And I'm a white middle-aged guy who loves the Grateful Dead. I did a liberal arts degree in university. Reiko is very much in the medicine world. So us working together worked really great because we have very different perspectives. We're different ages, different genders. We have different interests. And I really wanted to make sure that I could gather and use those different perspectives. So having her as my co-author was super important. By the way, she says hello. I wanted her to be a part of this, and she very much wanted to be a part of this, and we were planning on it, but she actually has a shift at the hospital this morning, so she's not able to join us. But she says hello to everybody.
Hello, Reiko, and please go ahead and keep saving lives. We all need you. Thank you. David, in the same vein, I think having two people bring such opposite, there's a deadhead on one side and a pothead on the other side. These are two very distinct personalities. Now it's easier, and obviously everybody tries to talk to young fans and young people first, and often tend to alienate those who are of a certain age and above. Have you seen anyone successfully turn people that are harder and more experienced? Obviously, with age comes experience, and with experience comes a refinement in preference and probably greater expectation. Younger people are easier to convert because everything is new to them. Have you seen companies and businesses successfully make fans of harder to attract fans, fan bases, much like yourself?
Oh, absolutely. No question about it. Because the fundamental idea of what I call fanocracy, or building fans, the fundamental idea is that the best companies gather a tribe of like-minded people. And the reason is this is rooted in neuroscience. And I mentioned to you a number of times now that my daughter Reiko did a neuroscience degree. We spoke with a bunch of important neuroscientists as we were researching the book, because we really wanted to know what was going on in our brains when we become a fan of something, when we want to buy a product or service. And it turns out that all of us, you and me and everybody here who's listening in, want to be a part of a tribe of like-minded people, because that's how we humans are hardwired. It's in our DNA. And the reason is because when we're with people who are like us, we feel safe and comfortable. When we're with people who we don't know, we can feel nervous. And an illustration of that is if you walk into a crowded room and you know a whole bunch of people in that room, you feel great because you're there with people who you know. However, if you go into, let's say, a building and into a crowded lift, a crowded elevator, and you don't know any of those people, you cannot help but feel a little bit uncomfortable. So as we were talking with these neuroscientists, one thing that we learned really quickly was, if you can build a tribe of like-minded people, it doesn't matter what their age is. It doesn't matter their background. If you build a tribe of like-minded people, those people will be attracted to you because you've built that tribe. Now, here's an example. I mentioned to you earlier that I'm a huge fan of this band, American band called the Grateful Dead. They started in 1965. Oh my gosh, that's 56 years ago, and 4 of the members are still going strong. And I've seen 75 Grateful Dead concerts starting when I was 17 years old in 1979. And what the Grateful Dead did, which is exactly this idea of fanocracy, is they built a tribe of like-minded people, And this is my Grateful Dead fandom. These are my friends who love to go to Grateful Dead concerts with me. And this was at a show a couple of years ago. And you can see, they're not young. The Grateful Dead has been around for 56 years. They're still selling out shows. They're still, this particular tour, which started in August. I went twice in Boston. I'm going to go 3 more times when they go to Mexico. This particular tour is going to, I think, about 25 cities. And they're selling out 20,000, 30,000, 40,000, 50,000 seat arenas and stadiums. And this is 56 years after they were founded. So there's no question that it's not about age. It's about figuring out how an organization can create a tribe of people who are eager to be a part of what that organization has created.
That's brilliant. This reminds me of, obviously the Grateful Dead is a different league and a different example. But Apple has a very similar philosophy as well, where what they do is you build products that are ahead and that are almost predictive of what people require, as opposed to building it for competition. You're not building it to compete and have a numbers race, but what you're competing for is of preference, of people who love what you build and love owning what you build, love using what you build. And that's the entire Apple fan base, the people who really love buying the products. There are obviously ample of reasons why people will not buy an Apple, but there are only emotional reasons why someone would. With that, when we talk about what the things that people love, and this is going to be very specific to a country like India. The people in India, and forgive me if I'm speaking for the mass, any audience members, please excuse me, I'm going to take my own experiences. But if we speak about India, we have a myriad. There are so many cultures, so many languages, there are so many individual preferences. First is, nobody can love something without someone not taking offense to it or objecting in some way or the other. The second is, some of us are just too busy to love things very deeply or very intimately. Also, we are extremely value conscious. So you would find Indians investing in value as opposed to investing in preference. Like somebody had once told me that, like, we were born, the West was born in, like, we understand convenience, right? The West understands convenience, Uber, Airbnb, these are all services of convenience where things are brought to you. Indians understand value. And we have no space for inconvenience, because the minute we were born in inconvenience, like I face rejection from cabbies almost every 5 minutes when I get out of my house. So in such an environment where there is such an impetus on value and very little about what we can love, businesses have automatically started catering to the value side versus the love side. What are your thoughts on extremely value conscious fans, and how do you turn those value conscious fans into fans of affection?
So that's a huge question. There's no right or wrong answer, of course. But when we did our research about fandom, we looked as broadly as possible. We looked all over the world. We looked for big companies and small companies, consumer product brands like Apple. And by the way, I pre-ordered my Apple iPhone 13 Pro Max, and it's going to be available on Friday. So I'm going to the Apple store to pick it up. So yes, I'm a fan of Apple. And we looked at companies that have a product like Apple, which is a very much a luxury product. It's expensive. But we also looked at companies that have a commodity product. And one product that comes to mind, two things I want to talk about, two examples. One thing that comes to mind is batteries, right? Batteries are a commodity product. And many people buy batteries based on price. You know, if this is a Duracell battery, if this Duracell battery is $2 for a pack of 4, and another set of batteries is $1.99 for a pack of 4, many people will choose the $1.99. But here's the thing that's really interesting. I spoke with Ramon Valentini. He's the vice president of marketing at Duracell. And I say, Duracell is not the cheapest. How come you are the most loved battery brand? And he told me about a program which is called Power Forward. And Power Forward is a program where Duracell goes throughout North America and gives away free batteries to people who are victims of natural disasters. So hurricanes, typhoons, floods, fires, snowstorms. Right now, you may be reading it in the American West, there's terrible fires. And there was a hurricane recently in the south of the United States. So they have a fleet of trucks, and these trucks go from one place to another where they're needed in a natural disaster. And they've given away tens of millions of free batteries. And they say, who needs batteries? Can charge your mobile phones and whatever. And it's totally free. You don't have to fill out any forms. You don't have to say who you are. You just walk up and you say, I need 10 AAA batteries, and they give you 10 AAA batteries. And as a result, if you go to, for example, if you go to the Duracell Facebook page, they have 6 million fans. A battery company with 6 million fans. And if you go to the pages where they share where the Power Forward trucks are going to be, it's incredibly heartwarming what people say. Like, oh my gosh, my son needs a dialysis machine or a respirator, and you saved his life. Or it's really dark and cold where I live, and I have batteries, so I can now use a flashlight. And these are real people. These are now fans. And Ramon Valentini, they were given. And even if the other brand is a little bit cheaper, they're inclined to buy the Duracell, which is why they're the most popular battery brand here in this country. And it was about building fans, not about being the cheap provider. And I want to provide one more example. It's sort of fun. I've been to India a number of times, and I wish we were doing this in person, but for obvious reasons, this is a difficult time due to COVID. But I did a presentation in a couple of different presentations in Kolkata a couple of years ago. And I was asking people, you know, what are you a fan of? And people would tell me the obvious things, you know, a cricket team, or they'll say Apple, or, you know, a TV show, or whatever it might be, a movie. And someone said, I'm a fan of the Kolkata Traffic Police. And I was like, what the heck are you talking about? You're a fan of the Kolkata Traffic Police. And they said, yeah, it's great because they actually have a Facebook page. And if you have a problem with a taxi driver, you can write down the taxi driver's number or their license plate number, record the time of day, and send the report through Facebook, and they'll investigate for you. And if you look at the Kolkata Traffic Police Facebook page, they have a whole bunch of fans. The police. So what we learned as we researched Fanocracy, my daughter Reiko and I, is that it doesn't matter what kind of product or service you sell. It doesn't matter what kind of company you have. You can have a company of one person. You can have a company with maybe 10 people or 10,000 people. You can sell a consumer product, a B2B brand. It can be a nonprofit. It can even be the police department, and you can build fans.
The police. I'm sure. So interestingly, very recently, the Mumbai police actually took social media very seriously, and they did something similar. They got a lot of fans because they're actually blending function with educative content, also humorous in nature. So you'd never expect the department to blend humor into policing. Right? That's not typically police DNA.
Well, and that's exactly one of the ways that you build fans is that, and I said this at the very beginning, it's about humanizing what you do. And so many organizations are just about the product, just about the product, just about the product. But if you humanize what you do, even if you're the police, even if you're a company that sells a commodity product like a battery, if you humanize what you do, you have an opportunity to build fans. And that's the ultimate way of growing business, because you don't have to spend that much money on advertising. You don't have to convince everybody that you're the best, or you don't have to be the cheapest. People gravitate to you because they love what you do.
I think to a great extent, this is visible in the actual market research industry degrowing. People using more listening tools to get one step closer, and now actually just going out there in the field to absolutely listen in person and be in the
right
where their fans are to get real-time feedback and use that. I just have two more questions for you. The first one, David, is what are your thoughts on influencer marketing? Because what I've realized, and India again is very big on finding people who can amplify our voice and making fans through association. So you'll find a lot of cricketers on our television channel, a lot of film stars on our television channels, and brands connecting with them and having them endorse the brand in order to use their credibility and their fan base and import those attributes. But that's not always. And increasingly, I see marketers asking that question, what value does those kind of associations bring? So what are your thoughts on influencers and borrowing a fan base?
So the way that I look at influencers, and I sometimes refer to them as advocates, is very simple in my mind. If you are paying an influencer, if you're paying them for them to talk about you, that's simply advertising. It's exactly the same as if you buy a television commercial or a magazine ad or a newspaper ad or a billboard on the side of the road. That is fine if it works for you, but that's not a way to build fans. And the person that you just paid is not someone who's your fan. It's someone who got paid to talk about what you do. And this technique is very, very common around the world. As you know, there's hundreds or even there's thousands of people on Instagram or YouTube that happily take money in order to talk about a product or service. What works much, much, much better is to develop fans who are eager to be an advocate for what you do. They're eager to talk about what you do. Over here on my left, I have a surfboard. I love to surf. I have a beach house where I was actually 2 weeks at the beach house the last 2 weeks, and I surf almost every day. I'm not very good at surfing, but I'm really, really passionate about surfing. This happens to be a surfboard that I made at a company called Grain Surfboards. It's a wooden surfboard. And Grain Surfboards, you can go there and they help you over 4 days to make your own surfboard. So they know the plans and the design and they know how to do it, but then you actually build that surfboard. And their entire business is built upon word of mouth from advocates like me, people like me who love grain surfboards. And because almost every other surfboard is made with a foam material rather than wood, when you take a wooden surfboard into the waves, or you have a wooden surfboard on the beach, people notice it. What's that? That's a wooden surfboard. Where did you get that? Oh, I made it. Oh, what? Tell me about that. That's super cool. And so people like me, here I am telling all of you about grain surfboards and how much I'm a fan. I'm a genuine advocate for grain surfboards because I'm a fan of what they do. And it's interesting, and I've written about them in my books. And the CEO of Grain Surfboards, his name is Mike. Mike contacted me a couple of days ago and said, David, thank you very much for talking about grain surfboards. Very often someone will contact us and say they heard about us through you. I don't get paid. I paid full price when I made the surfboard. I actually made 2 surfboards. I paid full price. I don't get any kind of discount. I'm not compensated in any way for talking them up, but I talk them up because I love them. And that's ultimately the way that the best kind of, if you want to call it influencer, I prefer the term advocate, to be able to distinguish between an influencer, which in my mind is someone who's paid, or an advocate, someone who does it because they love a product or service. And this approach works brilliantly well. By the way, I mentioned Duracell batteries before. If you're given some free batteries, many of those people become advocates. They're like, oh my gosh, we had a blackout. I had no power. I got free batteries from Duracell and I can run my flashlight, my torch. Isn't that awesome? And I love this company, Duracell. That's like gold. You don't have to pay someone to do that. You just have to be human in such a way that they're eager to share who you are and what you're doing.
That is brilliant, David. And once again, the fact that grain gave you not just the personalized experience, but also such an enchanting story to tell people like us who are listening to you, I think that in itself is worth 2 surfboards. I've got my eyes on the questions that the audience is asking. And one of the questions that I wanted to ask is also asked here. What's the quickest way to lose fans? What is it that you can do to alienate your fans? Ganesh, this was one of your questions, and I had it on my mind too. I'd love to know more.
Of course. There's many ways you can lose fans, but one of the quickest ways that you can lose fans is to not be truthful with your customers, to not be truthful with your fans. You always have to tell the truth, even if it's difficult. You have to tell the truth. And so many organizations, when something goes wrong, maybe they have a power, if it's a computer company, a software company, they have a power outage and it goes down, they make an excuse. Or if there's an issue with an executive or something, they'll try to hide. But it's way, 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 way better just to simply tell the truth always to your customers, to your fans. And an example that we wrote about in Fanocracy is one of my favorite examples of this. So you probably know the restaurant chain KFC, Kentucky Fried Chicken. And KFC in the UK actually ran out of chicken a couple of years ago. It's a chicken restaurant that has no chicken. And the reason that it happened was that their logistics company, the company that trucks the chickens, they changed. They went from an older company they'd been using to a new company. And the new company was not prepared to be able to deliver the chickens on time. And so what KFC could have done, which is what almost all companies would do, is they would say, we ran out of chicken and it's the fault of our logistics company. We're working with the logistics company to make it right. That's not what KFC did. What KFC did instead was they said, we screwed up. We ran out of chicken. Can you believe it? We're a chicken restaurant with no chicken. They created a website where you could go and find out which of the restaurants in the UK had chicken and which ones didn't have chicken. They did some humorous advertising around it. They talked with members of the media and said, we screwed up. We made a mistake. Here's what we did. And it turns out their fans thought that was just fine. And they were, I mean, of course, they missed chicken for a week, but once they were back up and running, it didn't have any influence at all. In fact, they actually grew a little bit in terms of the amount that, of meals. Telling the truth always is super important. And if you don't tell the truth and you are not honest with your fans, they will leave very, very quickly. And there's no faster way to ruin a business than not being truthful.
Brilliant. We have a few more questions. I have a question for the team managing the conversation. Can we bring somebody on into the conversation and have them ask David a question directly? Ganesh, Pooja, if either of you could.
Yes, sorry. Yes, Alap?
Is it possible for us to invite somebody to come and ask a question directly?
No, the thing is about the scale, yeah. It's just that there are quite a few people in the audience, that's why.
All right, cool.
So this is a better channelized way of doing it, that's all.
I understand.
But do you want me to read out the questions if you want? Is that making it?
Not at all. So I know Jesse asked a question.
Yes.
Rohit, all of your questions are actually answered in the book. What I would encourage you to do is do what I did. I actually got the audiobook. David's read the audiobook, and it's a much faster way to consume the book. But then when I actually had the book.
Well, and it's also Reiko, by the way. The two of us read the book.
Yes. So it's a much faster way for you to get the information in the book. And a lot of your questions are directly answered in the book. But what I also realized is when I actually started turning the pages, I saw that a lot of the call outs, the ones that are really memorable, have been literally called out, like they're popping out of the book for you to read. So I think it's an equal experience. But all of your questions, the difference between a tribe and a community, why is Apple keeping their fan base despite losing an edge in technology, and how is purpose relating to humanizing? I think all of those are answered in there. Jesse, I'm so sorry, I can't see your question anymore. There's been something wrong. Could you please ask it once again? Maybe on chat?
Yes, I'm just going to read that out, Alap, because I can see that. Why do you think B2C brands have not been able to build vibrant communities like, say, Enfield in the digital age?
In my mind, I think that many B2C companies, many consumer brands have failed to build fans and have failed to build community because they tend to focus on traditional marketing techniques, specifically paid advertising. Now, there's exceptions to this, of course, there's always exceptions, but many consumer brands look to spend lots of money on television advertising, perhaps radio, perhaps newspapers, maybe billboards, traditional forms of direct mail advertising, as well as sometimes email marketing. And these forms of paying money to generate ads are very, very different than the approach of creating fans, the approach of creating community, the approach of building something that people are eager to be a part of. Now, of course, there's always exceptions, but that's in my mind, the main reason is because consumer brand marketers who become successful because they're very good at working with advertising agencies, and they're very good at managing a budget around spending that money on advertising.
Let me weigh in a little bit on that with my own experience. There are brands that tend to think that their fandom is bulletproof, and they tend to lean too much on the fact that our brand value will sustain no matter what happens to us. And Royal Enfield is one of those brands that took the brand Royal Enfield, and interestingly, they were one of the first Fanocracies. People loved the motorcycles. You didn't have to do to ask them to go into a motorcycle shop. People bought them. They were huge. They were clunky. They were slow to slow down, but people just loved them, right? And the classic Royal Enfield, Thump was their brand. There was an auditory experience as well. So it was really rich.
Yeah, they're very loud, as I remember.
Yes, they are very loud. But what they didn't do was they didn't prepare themselves for where their customers were headed. How are they looking for information? What was the trade-off between maintaining their brand value versus maintaining technology as technology adapts? So while David in his book very clearly articulates the difference between selling your product versus selling what people love about your product, if you stop working on your product, you're automatically removing reasons why people should love your product. So I think to a great extent, competitors have come in and tried to take that position, but over time, that's something they could buy back. Another example was with Reebok when they started selling cricket kits in newspapers for, I think, about 10 pounds each. And that's about 1,000 rupees. And when they started doing that, all the people that were paying 3,000-4,000 rupees for a single pair of shoes suddenly realized that for 1,000 rupees, I can get shoes, a tracksuit, a bag. And there was, what are you buying into? Are you buying into something that you love because the experience is great, or someone who's trying to create a separate fan base that is diluting what you really love to afford a new market? And this is all visible because they had an ad, interestingly. The front page said 1,000 rupees for a set, and the back page said a new pair of shoes. So it was very dichotomous. They were not paying attention to it. And I think that's where it's not just about being truthful, it's about recognizing who you're talking to where. I think that should.
Yeah, and I mean, I think that's probably a good example. But again, that's paying money for advertising a lot. And in my mind, I think the most interesting brands and the ones that we tended to write about in Fanocracy are the brands that are able to create fandom without spending money on advertising. And an example consumer brand that I think is super cool, it's an important part of the book, is an underwear company, men's and women's underwear. They're called MeUndies. And what I think is super interesting about them is on their Instagram channel, their YouTube channel, their website, they don't have professional models who model in many cases. Most of the time, it's just their fans. And they have some very interesting things that they do to build fans. One of them is they have a subscription model. Now, of course, you can buy one-offs. You can buy one pair of underwear or 10 pairs. But they also have a subscription where it's a little bit cheaper and you get one pair each month and you can choose which design you want. And there's special designs that only people who are part of the subscription can have. And then one of the keys, which I think is so interesting, is they have both men's and women's underwear with the same design. So that means you and your partner can have the same underwear design. Of course, one made for a man's body and one for a woman's body. And people will often share pictures on their Instagram of them and their partner together in their underwear. And they post it on their social media. And then MeUndies, the company, celebrates that and shares it. And they ask permission and say, can we use this photograph in our YouTube channel? Can we use this photograph on our Instagram? And they have millions and millions of fans as a result. And the main reason is because they're celebrating their fans and their fans are eager to talk about them. And it's not just about spending money on advertising.
That does make sense. All right. Ganesh, could you ask another question, please? I'm so sorry. There's something wrong and I just can't see that window anymore.
No problem at all. Yeah, I'm here handy. So, Soundari Mukherjee has asked a question. When customers are not buying linearly, sales folks need to think beyond traditional routes and go from thinking selling journeys to thinking buying journeys. Any examples around this from your experience? Question to David.
Yeah, so that's absolutely right. What's interesting to me about the last 20 years is I started in sales when I first started my career 30 years ago. And when I was in sales 20, 30 years ago, it was really important for us to share all the information about what our products and services did, because we were the only place you could get detailed information, because we were the seller of the product or service. Today, there's many, many, many ways to get information about products and services. You can go anywhere to get that information. And you can go on to blogs of independent people and learn about a product or service. You can go to review sites. If it's a consumer product, you can go to places that sell them, like Amazon and other places that sell products and services. And I'll give you an example of this. So about 6 months ago, I wanted to build a new studio here in my house. And here's what my studio looks like now. I spent $25,000 on all of this equipment that I have. I have 4 cameras, lights, a great microphone, all kinds of gear so that I can be talking to you in the way that I'm doing it right now, make myself look good and sound good. And I didn't talk to a single salesperson. I spent $25,000 on equipment by researching online. So what companies need to understand is that people do their own independent research before they buy expensive products or services, both consumer products, like in my case, expensive gear for a studio, or consumer products like a motorcycle, who are selling big B2B brands. And an example that I love is a company called HubSpot. I happen to be on the board of advisors of HubSpot. I have been since the very beginning of the company in 2007. When I joined them, they had no customers. Today, they have over 100,000 customers all over the world. $1.2 billion in revenue, it's estimated they will make this year. They have a $30 billion US market capitalization. And they totally understand that people do research. They sell marketing, sales, and customer support automation software. And they fully understand that people will do their research first. And when they finally contact a salesperson, they have already done their research. So when someone does then reach out and talk to a salesperson, the salesperson at HubSpot knows. You don't have to tell them very much. You just listen to them and then provide the additional details and close the sale. And they're doing fabulously, fabulously well as a result.
Brilliant. To answer your question, Saundari, if I had to take a stab at it, what I would...
Alap, just sorry to interrupt. So I think some of our panelists for the next session have come. So I guess we'll draw it to a close.
Sure. All right. I would obviously encourage everybody to please have a read. Try and find yourselves a copy. Read David's book. If I had to summarize the book in one word, I think rehumanizing was the word that stuck with me the most. That's what the book encourages you to do, and be more honest with your customers and be more truthful. This was a lovely conversation, David. Thank you so much. And I hope the audience...
Thank you very much to everybody and the team that's putting on this event, and to you, Alep, for hosting the conversation. I've enjoyed it. So thanks, everyone. Thanks, everyone. Good luck.